Hey everybody, Burrito here. Legends has had a lot of updates in the last month, so I thought it'd be helpful to go over a lot of them. There's 5 specific updates that I'm going to be talking about, some of which is new content, but I'm going to be only highlighting them, so not everything's going to be read verbatim, so I highly recommend checking out these posts yourself. They're all on the Legends forums, and I'll link to them in the description below. Starting off with this, we're going to be talking about the 20th anniversary going on now with SWG's retail release. The staff has written a very nice message here to SWG fans, but the most important part of this is Double XP weekend is going on right now until the reset on July 3rd. So from June 26th to Monday, July 3rd, Double XP is available. If you haven't gotten on it yet, hop on right now. Additionally, everybody who logs in to the character will get this statue of a Zabrak adventurer. I don't know who it is. I was trying to figure it out, but if any of you know, let me know in the comments below. But here it is in game, and here it is for scale, sitting next to a Lando statue and the Princess Leia bust hologram. So obviously a little bit smaller, so you're gonna want to find a nice visible place for it on display. Each character on your account get one, and you get it by logging in automatically. There's also a lot of giveaways going on right now based on social media and the forums. The most significant one being here on the forums, where you can enter to win a Star Wars Galaxies Collector's Edition. Pretty cool. If you're interested in entering that sweepstakes, go to the forums and check it out. Next, we have the Empire Day 2023 celebration thread. I want to highlight that this thread is very useful for new and returning players because it links to Friday features, which have guides on how to access the quest and content going on with Empire Day, social media accounts, the wiki page for Legends, and patch notes, which we'll be reviewing after this section. But the most important takeaways from this thread really are there is a new painting you can get. This is Queen Amidala, as you can tell. You can get it from going to either the Vader or Yoda statues in Theed or Cornet, respectively, depending if you're Imperial or Rebel. Opening the radio menu on the statue and clicking Claim. You'll also get a hologram that's appropriate to your faction as well. So Rebels will get the Leia bust hologram that I showed earlier, and here it is next to the painting placed in the house for scale. I'm assuming Imperials get a different hologram. I don't know what, but I hope everyone enjoys those. There's events going on the forums and in game. So you have some scheduled events like the factional photo contest, some fishing, and then you have pop up events that can occur sporadically throughout the event, like the Probe Droid Down event, which I actually was playing last night with my friend Griffin Striker on stream. Here's a highlight from that right now, where we had to go find a Pro Droid for Wedge Antilles, retrieve the data from an NPC, and then go back to Wedge. The best thing about these pop-up events is you can get tokens of gratification, which you can then use for cool rewards on Verney Island. So here's the links that was discussed, and there are some teasers about what has been added to the event and vendors. So there's been 2 weapons added, one for Imperial and one for Rebel, specifically schematics for those weapons. So you could get the Imperial weapon even if you only have Rebel characters. You just got to purchase it from somebody and vice versa. There's also some new furniture that's been added and some new clothing. I'll leave the furniture and clothing to your surprise, but here are the Imperial and Rebel weapons that you can get. This is the TL50 Heavy Repeater. It is a carbine. This can be earned via doing the Empire Day quests for the Imperial side. Here is the Rebel weapon, the K16 Briar pistol. Fans of the Jedi Knight series have probably already recognized these weapons, but even if you don't, they're super cool weapon skins. I'm glad to see them in the game. Moving on, here's the development update notes that went live with Empire Day. These notes are comprehensive of everything that's been added and all the little changes or significant changes that were made. The most significant update to this patch is space. If you're not a spacer, I'm going to make this section a little separate so you can skip on ahead. But otherwise, if you're interested in space, here you go. We're going to do it all first and right off the bat. The biggest news is the XG-1 Starwing Heavy Imperial Attack Fighter has been added. You can think of it like a crate variant for the Imperials. It has 3 main weapons, a little bit bigger of mass, and it can be crafted by master shipwrights immediately. There's no sort of prerequisites that have to be met to craft this ship and get it available. So go log in, try it out right now if you're an Imperial pilot. I don't have an Imperial pilot. Here are the stats on screen for it. You can see that it's going to be a great endgame PvE ship to load out to give you some alternatives to TIE oppressors or whatever your preference may be. Rebels do get some love with the B-Wing Style 2 being added. It's the same as the B-Wing, except the wings look a little bit different. Again, crafted by Master Shipwright, so if you want a different aesthetic, go for that. Probably one of the biggest points of this patch is that turret gunners on board fighters, POBs, and gunships. So this means fighters like the Crate or the ARC 170, POBs such as the YT 1300, 2400, and then gunships. So you got your Vigo, your gunboat on the Imperial side, and the X4 on Rebels. Though all of those turrets now do increased damage by 2.75 times against most NPCs. This does not affect PvP targets, so players aren't affected like this. So if you're using a POB or turret against another player, it's the same as before. Similarly, this does not affect all of the NPC targets like it was discussed here. So some examples of that are if you're in a Galactic Civil War space invasion fight, your turrets do not do extra damage towards the enemy frigate. Similarly, I don't think they do extra damage towards the other NPC ships in that fight. I think the kinds of ships you'll see this change towards is for convoys, Bespin beacons, and high-tier duty missions. There is some more elaboration that the devs have added to this, specifically that this turret bonus is only applied when the ship is moving, and people who are logged into the same account do not get the turret bonus as well. So this means that if you want to get the damage bonus from the turret, you and a friend who's playing on a separate account, one of you must be piloting and one of you must be in the turret. If you log in your second or third character to man your turrets while you go park your ship somewhere or whatever, they're not going to get a damage bonus. The purpose of this is to prevent cheesing, AFK farming, and grinding, and I think that's a well thought out component of the system. So I want to give props to the developers, Senate, and anyone else involved with this change, as that was very well thought out, and I think it will add some more appeal to using turreted vessels in PvE content, because previously having somebody in your turret was not as valuable as having them in their own fighter. So hopefully we'll see some shifts in convoy groups, beacon groups, or high tier duty missions. Probably the next change that's very exciting is the assist command can now be used on any ship station. So previously, if you used the assist command as a turret gunner, it would just assist off of whatever their pilot's targeting, but now you can assist off of somebody in the operations chair or in another turret seat. Similarly, the pilot could assist off of them as well. So say you're in a space invasion and you have somebody in the operations chair and they're shot calling for not just the pilot, but also all the gunners. Or maybe you have somebody in the gunner's turret shot calling for the pilot, or being like, hey, this one's weak, turn me around, I want to get that one. This is a really great change, good to see it go through. A nice quality of life change is that pilot abilities and droid UI commands now have a visual graphic timer. You'll be very familiar with this graphic interface as it is the same as if it was on ground. I'm showing it here right now on screen. It's very nice to have. It makes the amount of time between your piloting commands or droid commands less ambiguous. So nice change. Significant for Lambda owners is that the shuttle's maximum mass has been nerfed. For the layperson or somebody who doesn't have a Lambda, basically what this means is now you can no longer fit a POB shield in here. While I am disappointed by as a Lambda owner, I completely understand and accept this change. The Lambda was just able to face tank everything in PvE and just eat gunboats alive. It can still eat gunboats alive, as you could fit some heavy weapons in it. You could still fit the mining capacitor in it, so you have a lot of weapon uptime and damage. You just can't face tank everything anymore. You got to be a little bit more considerate with your hit and run strategies. To that end, the handling modifiers have been reduced, so it is a little bit more cumbersome. You're going to be having a lot harder of a time tracing down lighter enemy fighters, so keep that in mind. However, as a benefit, the ship no longer collides with other ships as it were, POB, and the collision hitboxes have been worked to be more accurate to the model and not so oversized. So that's a little bit of a benefit for Lambda owners. So a little give, a little take. Again, overall, I think this is a positive change, and I think it will make convoys a little bit less sleepy as 6 Lambdas roll up and delete the whole group. Similarly, some neutral ships have had their dimensions of their hitboxes reduced to be more accurate to fit their visual meshes and standardized across all their styles, which is great. I am a neutral pilot originally, and that's my favorite kinds of ships, so I'm glad those are still getting attention. Similarly, the M22 Crate, I fly it all the time in PvE, has had its mesh to better represent the ship itself. This is a net reduction, so it makes the crate harder to hit. I don't take my crate into PvP, so that's not much of a boon for me, but that is very nice that that was done. So next, the bonus token reward for completing a grouped high-tier duty mission now scales based on how many waypoints the group has completed and that you've participated in, and that you have to be present for at least half of those to receive the entire bonus. This is good. It prevents people from dipping in and out with alts, other characters, and getting a bunch of extra tokens, so I think that's a good change. New Imperial pilots are eating good here. The Naval Academy has decided, you know what, you can handle those bigger ships a little bit sooner than we originally planned. So a lot of ships are becoming available at earlier certification ranks. Probably the biggest win here is the TIE Fighter and its high mass variant being certified at Imperial Pilot Initiate. That's super awesome. Leveling as an Imperial pilot can be difficult, especially very early on compared to the ships you get as a neutral and rebel pilot. So this is a welcome change that helps even the playing field. I haven't done Ace of Aces yet, but this is a welcome change if I ever decide to do so. Next, space missiles have been reworked significantly. Most missile crafting recipes have had their quantities reduced, which is a boon for shipwrights, especially knowing that most of the missiles have had their stats buffed. But the fix is not retroactive, so get on to crafting those missiles and see those benefits immediately. Each missile type now also has a PvE only damage modifier that increases their damage against most NPC ships. This attribute is fixed, so the crafting process won't affect it, and you can view them on the missile launcher corresponding to the missile type. This change is great because historically missiles in PvE were not really worth the cost. You say those for PvP where a little bit extra damage can help, but in PvE didn't really speed along things much. So I'm glad to see this change go in. Maybe I'll start using my missiles against NPCs for once. Very niche is the Tatooine space station will offer the mission, which results in Jabba's palace access to Smuggler Alliance pilots up until they have taken the first mission from Tier 3 trainer. So what this means is that if you join the Smugglers Alliance and you're a fresh initiate, you can launch into Tatoo space, go to the space station, get a quest, complete it, and then it will give you access to land at Jabba's palace. If you're already an Alliance ace, this doesn't affect you. Or if you're just leveling into Tier 3 now, this also won't affect you. New Alliance pilots don't have to do this. If you ignore that space station mission, just do your quests and then get Tier 3, you'll naturally unlock access to Jabba's palace like you always used to. This is just a way to get access there faster. Great for new pilots. But again, if you're already ace or past Tier 3, not really a big deal. Lastly, there's been some bug fixes for space. Most notably, they fixed a bug where components in the Corvettes would be untargetable, even though they still existed. This is really nice because sometimes hitting the secondary shield or one of the turrets without being able to target it's really frustrating. It's a lot of guesswork and just being like, man, I hope this hits. One bug fix that I think is very funny, which is a good fix, but mostly funny, is they fixed an issue where a player gunner would become suspended in space when the gun they were controlling was disabled. I just think it's really funny in my mind thinking Rodian just, stuck in space in the middle of a space invasion. But, glad to see that critical problems like that getting fixed, as well as smaller problems like a texture fix on the fire spray. Not that I would have ever noticed that because I've never seen anyone fire fire spray, but glad that's getting fixed. And of course, thanks for relocating the lock hyperspace one point. Spawning inside asteroids was kind of lame. But yeah, overall, Spacer's eating good. I know some of those changes are a little bit more questionable or debatable, so let me know what you think in the comments about those. Addendum to the space section, totally forgot about the Senate resolutions affecting space, but basically the resource requirements for a few chassis have been reduced by 20%. Awesome. Havoc Starfighter got buffed. Awesome. The mass wasn't changed though, just its performance stats, so movement, turning, and all that. The YT-2400 now has a third ordnance launcher slot, so more missiles are always cool. Brings it in line with other POBs. The TIE Interceptor got a buff in mass up to 75,000, so that's awesome for Imperial pilots. Not looking forward to trying to gun you all down with even bigger mass, though. So, See you out there, I guess. The Y8 mining ship has also been overhauled. It can now equip gunship parts, tractor beam, large asteroid chunks, and it has its chassis performance modifiers reduced to reflect that. This affects all existing Y8s, so you don't need to get you recrafted. This is a positive change, brings it more in line with the other POBs. Vigo and the Rebel X4 gunboat got a slight speed modifier buff. Sick. And the Actis Jedi Starfighter has had its collision hit sphere made to be the same size as the Bellabub, but now it takes PvP damage at the same reduced rate as other fighters. This affects all starfighters immediately. Pretty cool, I think. I don't fly Jedi Starfighter. I know there's some Jedi Starfighter fans out there, though, so let me know how you feel about that one. Moving on from space, I'm going to cover the rest of the development notes here. Again, I'm doing this quickly. I'm not going to be going over every single bullet point as there's a lot, so I recommend reading this in full after watching the video. In addition to Empire Day and Remembrance Day being started, you know, Theed Royal Palace got a facelift. It's looking really nice on the inside. Here's some footage of it. I really like that they decorated the space. It's always felt a little bit hollow and dark and not really lived or worked in. So having some new furniture added, as well as some functional furniture like Starship terminals, which I'm pretty sure weren't there, but if I'm crazy, let me know. It's looking really good. I mean, they got a cool fountain. NPCs actually look like they live in rooms or work in rooms rather than just idling in voids. There's also some nice Easter eggs scattered around that I'm not going to show you, so you're going to have to log in and check it out yourself. I'm hoping the staff does stuff like this to other locations in the game in the future to make them feel a little bit more lively. You know what I mean? Great to see that. Mara Jade stands rejoice. Her appearance has been updated. I actually haven't went and looked at her, but hopefully you're all happy with it. This is the list of the items that were added. So like before, I discussed the K16 Briar pistol and the TL50 heavy repeater carbine. The rest of these, go find them in the game. They look really good. I actually checked out the brown variant of the DH17 holster. Pretty cool that you can have a worn belt or waist slot item that you can toggle to have a weapon in or out of it. Be cool for RP stuff. The DH17 is not my favorite looking weapon in the universe, so not my style, but I'm sure Rebel role players will appreciate it much, or other role players who sport the DH17. Moving to the Senate resolutions, while the majority are space, I will point out that there's this one hiding in here for the Kazash Insignia instance, now ejecting players to the interior of the Jedi Temple rather than the exterior. This is a good change. You don't need to be running back and forth between Aurelia and the Jedi Temple to get in and out of fights easily, or just checking the temple bosses, so that's good to see. Let's start on the bug fixes. First, for crafting, there's a pretty imperative one here with assembly results not calculating as they were supposed to, so glad to see that fixed. And factory speed is now calculated with manufacturing begins and stored while the schematic is not actively producing items. So basically, there was some inconsistency with what factory speeds were supposed to be relative to the trader's buff and equipped jewelry items. So hopefully this kind of fixes that. Nice to see. Going over to combat, as a lover of smugglers, this is a great one to see. Super niche, but the Synapse Crystal proc no longer consumes off-the-cuff and end-of-the-line buffs. Basically, off-the-cuff and end-of-the-line, for those who aren't smugglers or familiar with it, are buffs a smuggler would put on, and then they would be consumed upon the next use of a special action. However, the Synapse Crystal being a random chance proc, consuming those is extremely frustrating, especially since the damage that the Synapse Crystal proc is doing is likely significantly less than whatever the special action that would have been used on, or more imperatively, if you're using off the cuff to guarantee something like a root with Nerf Herder. So awesome change. A legacy fix a lot of people should be looking forward to is Exarchun's second phase with the Minder of Weak Wills should no longer become stuck if the Minder is defeated first. For those of you who are like, who's the Minder? This is the shaved head woman with the Gacklebat and the monkey in that hallway right before Caretaker. Historically, if you killed the Minder before you killed her pets, you just get stuck and you can't progress. So this makes it so if the Minder is killed first, that the entire instance won't get stuck there. Awesome change. A more controversial change is that there is a bug resolved with the combat scripting for PvE damage when using Jedi's Flurry. More specifically, there was a bug enabling Jedis with the Flurry attack to do an unintended amount of damage to Kazash, the boss of the Kazash instance, the Jedi theme park heroics. I say this is controversial because while yes, a bug has been fixed, apparently it was doing a significant amount of unintended damage. and was arguably making the instance not only faster, but a bit easier. With this change, some groups have been trying to take on new strategies to adjust to that. I've heard some rumblings about adding more melee damage focused professions into the groups, or mixing up group comps entirely. I haven't run Kazash and Sinya since this patch personally, so I'm not sure how much this is shaking up. My opinion is any bug fix to combat scripting is a good bug fix. Even though it does make the fight take a little longer now, I think overall it's a positive change. Another controversial fix is that NPC stealth detection has been resolved. Apparently, there was an issue with it where NPCs weren't correctly detecting camouflaged players. The biggest impact this has had is that, according to some spies I've talked to, farming Deathwatch Bunker for liquids is even more difficult now. The rate of detection from super battle droids and other NPCs has gone way up. It's caused sort of a shift in that underground social community. I'm not sure exactly what the impact is, as I don't have a spy currently, and I haven't farmed Deathwatch Bunker in recent memory. So I'm not really positive how much of an impact it is. Some have said that it's so much of a change that they're going to look for other avenues for making credits at the keyboard. But again, I know this is kind of salt in the wound for some spies, as they upped the camo detection on super battle droids a while ago, which has caused spies to stack more camo than they used to, specifically for farming Deathwatch Bunker. So maybe some of these spies just feel like they're being unfairly targeted by this change. But again, I think a stealth detection fix is good. Again, this wasn't an adjustment to the system intentionally. It was like, hey, this was broken, let's fix it. There's some miscellaneous changes here. Again, I won't go over all of them in detail, but the ones important to me is the Corvette instance, not curling Corvettes in space, but the Corvette instance had the issue fixed where the droid will not correctly disable the electrical field in the engine room. For those who don't know, part of the instance is you have to get a droid to move across a electric field that will incapacitate or kill your player if you have the incapacitation timer already up, and then interact with the console on the other side and disable the field. Most of the time, the droid would go across the field and then just sit there, forcing the player to run in the field, spam click the console, get incapacitated, and then run out hopefully before the field kills you. Super niche change, but I love it as somebody who used to farm that instance for AV-21 Asians because I love that speeder. Thank you, I appreciate it. On the topic of Deathwatch Bunker, groups shouldn't be erroneously locked out of empty crafting rooms anymore, hopefully. Since that Pirate Day is going on, this is an important one to mention. The no trade shared status on decorative consumable items. So the Death Star soda or the Imperial cookies that you can buy and then put in your house as decoration all year has been removed. Awesome. And that's from already existing ones. So if you have some stored in a furniture bag somewhere, you can now trade those around, move them around a lot more freely. That's a great change to see. One close to my heart, also kind of a legacy fix, super niche, but I love it, is that players in Tansari Point Station will now be able to find each other properly with the Friend Finder terminal. The Friend Finder terminal has basically always been broken, but on live, I do remember trying to use this thing and it just didn't work. And while I know most players probably won't be in Tansari Point Station, you know, maybe somebody will find this useful. Anyways, I think it's a really nice fix, so thanks for doing that. A nice overall client fix is players should no longer be stuck on a permanent loading screen when trying to reconnect to their character following a crash desktop. I think we've all encountered this maybe once or twice. A new change that is great for new players or people who use terminal missions a lot is that the show instance command, so the command used to usually check your lockout timers and accessibility of heroic instances, has been updated to also display daily cooldowns like comp nor information. So here's an example where I just did a mission terminal mission, and now you can see that I have 14 missions remaining, and you see the time at which that will be reset, and I'll be eligible for more comp nor bonus. Great to see. Some miscellaneous changes that aren't really high on my list, but I'm sure are heavily appreciated by entertainers, are players may now sit while wearing costumes. I'm sure role players now rejoice over the fact that they could dress up as something humanoid and actually sit in something. So that's great. Clicking on a floor-based instrument while dancing or playing music will no longer stop the performance. Instead, you'll get a dialog box that pops up, and a radio menu has also been added. That's really nice because I'm sure, as some of you've seen, Moss Eisley's Cantina can get littered with a lot of floor-based instruments like the Narglagon. I'm sure a lot of entertainers really appreciate this change. A very minor one that I also want to point out is you can no longer get scammed on your shuttle ticket purchases, so you can't buy a ticket to the location you're already at. Nice fix. I actually have done that at least once. On the PvP side, we have 3 new Flashpoint maps, and they're all in Mustafar, which, yeah, there hasn't been a Mustafar map yet, so that's super awesome. I haven't been able to try it yet, as when I've been online, the ongoing Flashpoints have been existing Flashpoint maps, but I'm hoping to try it soon. I would love to go swim in lava every time someone tries to hit me with a superior firepower or something. Love seeing those trimmed out. I'm also happy that existing maps are having their layouts updated, and we're seeing some drops from the rotation, some other ones coming up, as a few of these maps do feel like they appear quite a bit over the others. So it's nice to see. The most significant update outside of what is already talked about is that the veteran reward system has been reworked significantly. So some items are now available later than they used to be based on account age, and some of them can't be redeemed just purely on account age anymore. This change was made to better reward active play and to discourage people from making burner accounts to, say, make an account, redeem one-time account items like the create free resources, vehicle mount needs, etc., and then selling them on the market ad nauseum. Which the problem of that, it was reducing the amount of credits other players could actually earn off those items because they became so commonplace. I'm not going to go through this full list of items, but I want to note that probably some of the most important changes or additions to the system lie beyond here. First of all, you can see a lot of the items have been moved to the Chronicle vendor. Some of the other items have been moved to the Key Pass on Verney Island, so the vendor that takes those tokens of gratification that I mentioned earlier. Some of the items have also been moved to the Aurelia vendor, specifically costing Jedi theme park tokens, so the Kazash and Sinya tokens. And a few of the items have been moved to the Galactic Civil War space vendors, so the tokens that you get from GCW Space Invasions can be used to buy these furniture items. A couple of them are actually on the Empire Day and Remembrance Day vendors, so if you want any of these, maybe check those vendors out now while Empire Day is still going on. However, a new system has been added. Those of you who've played Fallout 76 or Destiny might be familiar with this kind of system, but there is now a traveling vendor in the galaxy who will move its position with each server restart. His name is Urabar. Here he is in Bella Vistal. He can sell a certain number of items for credits. He won't have all of these available in his list immediately, but he'll have like usually around 5 available. If you're ever having a hard time finding him, go to the Legends Discord. They've been tracking his positions in the interior design channel. So just search Urabar in there or traveling vendor, and you should see some records of it. If you don't, just ask in there. Maybe someone can point you towards the information, or maybe no one's found him yet. Next, some miscellaneous vendors have also gotten some of the veteran rewards out of them, such as the housing demolition event vendor, Imperial Rebel Hoth vendors, Bespin vendors, and the Flashpoint vendor. Most interestingly, some of these items are now tied to quests or badge rewards, meaning that you can earn them on multiple characters. So, for example, Flight of the Veteran is earned on a character when you reach level 90, to my understanding. Homing Beacons are earned on a character when you reach Ace Pilot. And I'm not sure where the rest of these are. I heard that the Sandcrawler hologram and or the Transport Skiff are tied to quests in Jabba's theme park. Keep an eye out for those when you're questing throughout the galaxy, and make sure to ask around and figure out where you might get some of these rewards if you haven't completed those quests already. Lastly, is some of those items have also been moved to loot tables. I haven't looked into what loot tables these are on or where you can loot these, but if you loot yourself a miniature replica of a Tusken Raider, you might be like, oh, that's where this is now. All right, moving on. There was a hotfix issued after that development update that has fixed and tweaked a few things. I'll allow you to read this at your own leisure, but the one thing that I wanted to specify is that Kazash's health regeneration has been adjusted. I believe this means that it has been reduced in order to compensate for the Jedi Flurry fix. So, again, one of those criticisms was, hey, fixing the Jedi Flurry damage on Kazash has made him prohibitively more difficult to kill and take more time. Well, they listened and they're like, all right, how about we reduce his health regen a bit? Kudos to the devs for listening and trying to find a nice middle ground there. That might not be the last change we see to that boss, but great to see that they're open to considerations like that. The last update I want to cover happened at the beginning of June regarding the game's economy. There's a lot of good information here, but I want to read exactly one snippet out of the middle here. To share with you all just a small snippet of data, during the 30-day period in April 2023, $21,580,343,989 total credits were generated. That's over 21.5 billion credits. Out of that, approximately 78%, so more than 3/4 of those credits, 16,832,668,311, came only from junk dealer sales and NPC loot. The vast majority of these credits were generated from away from keyboard or AFK, with one account, one player account, earning over 600 million credits on its own in a 30-day period. For anyone who's played this game for any amount of time, in any casual or hardcore sense, generating 600 million credits just by slaying NPCs, taking their credits, taking the loot, and then junk dealing the loot is absurd, even if it's over 30 days. That's a lot of raw earning power. So, keeping in mind that 16.8 billion credits came from just junk dealer sales and NPC loot is significant. To this end, the developers have made some changes to help reduce and curb the amount of credit generation coming from AFK play. So the first step that they took was that they limited the areas where the smuggler's junk dealer and fence abilities can be called. So the junk dealer group buff will still be applied in these areas, but the junk dealer NPC won't show up. So don't worry, smugglers, if you want that 50 luck, 50 precision, or damage reduction, you'll still get that. It's just the NPC won't show up. So these areas include interior spaces like starports, space zones, so if you're on a POB, dungeons, so like Avatar, Corellia and Corvette, or heroics, so Avatar hard mode, Aquaman, Tuscan Army, etc. In addition to the locations listed above, in order to prevent these abilities from being used elsewhere in the galaxy, the junk dealer and fence abilities will no longer be callable if the game detects that a player is inactive for a period of time. So if I am in my house and I am AFK and I am just running a macro to summon my junk dealer or summon fence or whatever, then it just won't work. Even if I'm in an area like my own house where I could normally call those things, it just won't fire it. This is all done to help prevent people from abusing these mechanics and farming too much loot or making too much credits, etc. I think it's a good change overall. I'm glad that the devs and those involved thought about the junk dealer buff ahead of time, so shoutouts to you. That was one of my main questions when I first saw this update, but I'm glad that you were on top of it. Similarly, they're going to be reducing the amount of credits that are dropped by many NPCs throughout the galaxy. The goal here again is helping to lower the appeal of AFK grinding for credits. Those NPCs will still drop their associated loot rewards as they normally do. For example, if you're farming some NPCs for Jedi or Sith holocrons for your collection, if they were dropping credits, you might notice they're dropping fewer credits, but they can still drop those holocron pieces you're looking for. To be more specific, one of the developers answered a question in the Discord that illuminated exactly what they did, which is that they lowered the credit output of 14 mobs, so 14 enemy types, that are typically only used by AFKers up to 90%. So in some cases, these mobs may have been dropping 100 credits per death on average. Now they'd be dropping 10 credits. Again, not all of them were reduced by 90%, but just up to 90%. However, to balance that change, going into the next point here, we can see that they increased the payout by heroics by 500%. The forum post itself illustrates which heroics these are, which includes the original Aurelia heroics, so Aqua Min, IG-88, Imperial Star Destroyer, XR Kun, and Tuscan Army. The new Jedi Theme Park heroics with Kazash Insignia, Avatar Hard Mode, and then both Hoth instances. So the total credit payout of all those instances combined has been increased by 500%. It's not that each individual instance will yield you a 500% yield, but all those combined will. To illustrate this, prior to the update, I was usually making around 300,000 credits just looted from doing the original 5 heroics back-to-back. Now doing the 5 heroics back-to-back after this update, I'm earning 700,000 credits. So that's more than double than what I used to make. Pretty nice. I'm glad to see those credits being generated at the keyboard rather than AFK. I do want to note that the devs do go on to say that these decisions were not made lightly, but they strongly believe that these are crucial first steps. This isn't the entire solution, but the first steps to getting the economy back on track. Overall, I think these are positive changes for the game. Generating more credits at the keyboard and rewarding active play is definitely much preferred than rewarding away from the keyboard play. However, I do understand this might negatively impact new players initially, as that was a good way of earning credits when you're first starting out. But hopefully, in the long term, this helps more people get into the game actively and not feel obligated to do things like AFK for a week to maybe make enough credits to afford a weapon or a piece of armor. Either way, those are all the updates in June and the highlights I wanted to cover from that. I hope that was helpful for some of you. If it was, let me know in the comments below. Or if you have feedback about this kind of video, let me know. I am working on a new Star Wars Galaxies video. Hopefully, I'll have that done soon for you all, as I know it's been a little bit. But in the meantime, feel free to come over to my stream, check that out. I play Star Wars Galaxies on the regular there, and we can maybe have a discussion about some of these changes that I noted in this video. Either way, thanks again for your time, and stay hungry.